Process is someone who has been advocating for an independent redistricting system for years now. He is Citizens Union Executive Director Dick Dadey. Dick, thank you very much for your time.
Nice to see you, Liz.
Okay, so my understanding is that the good government community is not freaking out about the fact that the governor seems to be maybe backpedaling a little on saying, I will veto any plan that the legislature puts together that's not independent. So if you're not, then why not?
Well, I think he's been very consistent, and we're thrilled that he continues to repeat his pledge that he made as a candidate for governor, that he will veto these lines if they are not done by an independent process. And he reiterated that today. And what I think he was doing was simply highlighting the fact that if it gets to this point of where he has to veto the lines, chaos will result. That means it then goes to the courts. We don't know how long that will take because a special master will have to become involved in drawing these lines. We don't know what's going to happen because we've never had the whole plan thrown out by a gubernatorial veto and have to go to the courts. We've had districts that have had to be reshaped as a result of cases being brought in violation of the Voting Rights Act on the federal level, but it's been very specific districts, not the whole plan. So we're entering uncharted territory, and I think the governor simply was saying, if you force me to do this, I will do this. And chaos will result.
Yeah, it's interesting because in terms of responsibility, obviously, he's putting the onus directly on the legislature, is he not? I mean, he's saying, if there is chaos, not my fault. I asked you over and over again to do this in a different way, and you didn't listen to me, and so here you are.
Well, the responsibility lies with the legislature right now because the governor has proposed a program bill that has laid out very clearly what he would like to see in an independent process be made up of. He's taking the same tack that he did with the ethics reform. He said, this is what I want to achieve ethics reform. He's actually done much better than he did with ethics reform because he's actually put together a very specific proposal. And he has said, with ethics, he said, if we don't pass this by the end of the legislative session, I'm going to form a Moreland-style commission.
Right.
And he got them to the table to negotiate in good faith and come out with an admirable ethics bill.
Do we really think, though, that the supposed chaos that the governor is warning of today really would occur? Because once you cede to a judge, generally speaking in the past, even though you have no control, neither the legislature nor the governor has control over the judicial branch. That's the way we're set up, right? 3 branches of government. However, the judges have generally been loath to inject themselves into the political process, and so they really sort of say, hands, okay, yes to this plan or yes to that plan, and it's not my problem. The judge generally doesn't just redraw a whole new plan himself.
No, he doesn't. But again, we've not seen how this may play out on a statewide basis. The previous plans that have been thrown have been very district-based, right? And so what may happen is the courts may take it from the legislature and the governor and say, since you failed in your responsibility, we will appoint a special master who will draw the lines, probably using the framework for what the legislature's come up with, but doing some tinkering or tweaking on some district lines. And the Republican Senate cannot afford to have anyone play with the lines that they come up with because a tweak or a move here removes any level of control that they once had to ensure a partisan victory. And so I think
here's where I'm a little confused, and I understand we'll get back to the Senate Republicans in a second because I understand that this really all comes down to them in terms of who has the most to lose, except for 2 members of the New York House delegation who are probably going to end up in somebody else's district, which is a lot to lose actually. My understanding is that, are you guys creating your own plan? Is that right? Are you involved in that?
We are not.
You're not. Okay.
A common cause is creating its own plan, but we are looking at as one of our the tools in our toolbox, so to speak. At some point, should it come to where there's no ability to have an independent process, putting forward some ideas on what the map should look like.
Okay, so let's say
we're not yet there.
Okay, it has been postulated to me by other people in this process that it might come down to this. There's a plan from LAT4, there's a plan from Common Cause, et al., good government types, etc. There's a plan from a Latino group, there's a plan from an Asian group, there's a plan from an African American group, and all these plans go to the judge. Now the judge gets to say, okay, well, I like this one or I like that one. I mean, it seems like there's going to be a number of competing plans here, and that in it of itself is chaos, is it not?
It is chaos, but I don't think the judge would do it necessarily as appoint a special master
right.
skilled in doing this. And I think you are right, Liz, in something you mentioned earlier, that great deference has been given to the legislator's constitutional authority to draw these lines. But there's a role for the governor in this by approving those lines or vetoing those lines. I think that we know that Latford draws partisan lines for political advantage, and the fact that there may be other plans out there may help inform. But I would not be surprised that the courts do give deference to the legislature on this. But the Senate cannot afford to have anyone futzing with their lines, so to speak.
Yeah, but they're sort of rolling the dice. I mean, the governor says, I'm going to veto, but that will cause chaos. Now we also have the Department of Justice, remember, maybe moving up the primary to June, which means that we're going to have these lines having to be approved by February, which is in the middle of the budget process, which is another brand of chaos. So, you have all of these things up in the air at once, and the Senate GOP might be like, we'd rather cast our lot and try our luck with the judge and a special master, because, as you said, they tend to defer to the legislature, and a little tweak by them would be a lot better than a big tweak by the governor or some independent entity that he decides he'd like to have take a crack at this process.
That may be part of their political calculus, but that is a big gamble, because we do not know how the courts may respond, particularly given the advocacy that's taken place on this issue over the last number of years, the fact that 184 legislators support an independent process, the fact that there are other competing plans out there that shows what a fair process would produce. So there may be deference given, but there are so many unknown factors that may contribute to the judge's ultimate decision on this. And keep in mind that, another poll came out today, the Quinnipiac poll, that showed 3/4 of New Yorkers support some level of independent process.
Yeah, but Dick, they also support, and I'm looking at the poll right now, don't draw legislative district lines to create racial or ethnic districts such as blacks and Hispanics. Now, that's 72 to 21% of New Yorkers support that statement. The problem is it's actually mandated by the federal government that we do that. So, again, proof that, look, the redistricting process is difficult. I don't think people necessarily know all the rules. They don't like the idea of drawing a district to favor one group over another, but you know what? We have to. We have to.
Right. And there's certain federal protections in place for people of color minorities when it comes to electoral representation.
Right.
But also in that poll shows that, what 2/3 of the voters said that a line should not be drawn to favor or disfavor incumbents or challengers. And that's not a protected category except in the form of case law.
Okay, let me just ask you before I let you go. There's been a lot of talk by the legislative leaders, specifically Assembly Speaker Silver, for example, saying we're negotiating, we're talking about a potential solution, maybe there's some way that we can avoid. Everybody's nervous, particularly in Congress, of course, and the Senate Republicans, as you mentioned. What do you know about said negotiations and what it might create at the end?
I do know that the Assembly Democrats have engaged with Citizens Union and a few others in in discussions about what an alternative way forward might be, other than the governor's program bill and some of the other bills that have been put on the table, given the truncated time frame that we're now operating in. So the Assembly Democrats have actually put forward